Man, what's good? What's good? What's goody? It's your buzzing cousin Ghost Boogie, and it's Danny Chaz.
Hello.
Hello. Hello, governors. Top of the night to you. Pippity pip. Hey, it's episodes 2 and 3. So for everybody tuning in live right now on YouTube, because Blurred Reality Wrestling is now live on YouTube. Blurred Reality Wrestling. Live on Twitch, Blurred Reality Wrestling, live on Danny Chaz's and my Twitch channel too.
We're not live on Danny Chaz's one.
We didn't get you live?
No.
You weren't able to link. Oh man.
I added the destination, but it said
all right,
we need to upgrade to go to more than 3.
No.
Maybe you needed to add it.
We'll talk about that after the show.
No worries.
All right, so check it out, man. Either way, follow all of the accounts. Blurred Reality Wrestling on YouTube. Hit that like, follow, subscribe, all notification bell. Make sure you follow Danny Chaz on twitch.tv. Make sure you follow Ghost Boogie 66 on twitch.tv. And make sure you follow Blurred Reality Wrestling on twitch.tv too. So, man, there we go. For you guys tuning in live, welcome in. For you guys on the replay, welcome in. Make sure you comment throughout. We'll be answering your comments, your questions, and all of those things. If you could, please make sure you follow us. And with that being said, let's get into episode number 2. We're doing episodes number 2 and 3 for the live folks. You guys on YouTube, we're going to be cutting it up. So there it is. Danny.
It's episode 2 and 3, man.
For the live folks.
Yeah, man, we're whizzing through them.
Yeah, man.
Be one of the live folks. If you're catching this on the audio, come over to our Twitch channels. Like, you know, this is where you catch the live unedited version of the show and you can join in. So if you're listening to us on audio through one of our many podcast apps, come over and listen to us live, man. Come and join the show.
Yes. So, episode 2. Heat.
Episode 2. Heat.
Something that, you know, I know about. Something you know about. Heat, baby.
Heat, baby. Huggy Farms, we're talking to you. Heat.
Oh, man. Huggy Farms. Like, I ain't got no heat with Huggy Farms, man.
I ain't got no heat with Huggy Farms. Huggy Farms is a cool dude, man.
Becca Boo, yes, we are late. We had some administrative work that we were working out. So all good things for all of our programs that we all have. But Danny Chaz, Chill on Sunday, of course, the usual suspects, Sesh, and B-Boys Underground. We do all of these things to be able to bring you content damn near every single day. And if we don't have podcasts, I'm DJing. Like yesterday, we went, 3.5 hours yesterday? So I streamed for 10.5 hours yesterday. Total.
I've put a great crate together. I might even do it after this show. I might even set up after the show about an hour after and go live with a DJ set. What up, Stu Dog?
Hey, look. Hey, can I say Gorilla Strong's in the house, man? And Gorilla Strong last night on the SES showed out, man. Thank you so much again for your support, Gorilla Strong. You went ham last night. And Becca Boo, it is Becca Boo's birthday, y'all. Happy birthday to Boo.
You. Happy birthday to you,
Boo.
Happy birthday, dear
Becca Boo.
Happy birthday to you,
Boo.
And many more.
And many more, damn it.
Look,
Becca Boo has been with us, you know, and been a part of the community since day one of my day ones. I mean, like, we linked up quickly, so, and has supported everything that we do. Much love. And then Stu Dog, man. Shout out to Stu Dog. Shout out to Lil Stu Dog.
Yeah. Little Albie, your number one fan.
Albie Shore, man.
Yeah, man.
Shout out to Albie.
Dude, you can see that picture of him loving your stream, didn't you?
Dude,
Young,
it just gives me fuel, man. It just gives me fuel. And to come to find out, like one of my mentors, like the guy that taught me, you know, pretty
mm,
much put me on this creative path and put the battery in it back. He watched me yesterday and we've been texting and I was asking for notes and he's like, man, I've tuned into he's like, I lurk and tune into a lot.
mm,
And I was like, for real, because I purposely don't pay attention to viewer counts and stuff like that because, it doesn't matter. I just pay attention to who's in the chat and that's it. Like chatting.
mm,
And he broke down a couple of times, like a couple of episodes of the sessions, and he was like, "That's outrageous," and I was like, "Absolutely, that's what it's for," and b-boys, and then some of the different mixes that I was doing and
mm,
stuff like that that I never even realized that he was there. So it was really cool. And shout out to Doc Smith. That's my man right there,
mm,
man. And man, so the episode Heat starts out with something that I forgot about. And as a kid, I just thought even was a little ridiculous when I saw it. And I can't remember what it was on and what it was aired on and why it was, but I remember seeing it with the whole band in the background playing, and it were all the wrestlers. And you mentioned it on a previous
mm.
episode with Animal, like missing the try. He was like, I think it was it a tambourine? I don't know what it
It
was.
was a triangle because he had a little stick and he just kept missing with
Yeah,
it. Yeah, man.
look, there he is, right there. There he is, Doc Smith, right there. He's lurking. He's the watcher too. So
Hey,
shout
Doc.
out to Doc Smith. And so, what we're going to be doing for you folks that are on my YouTube channel on Ghost Boogie 66 right now, I'm going to continually be raiding into the channel, our Blurred Reality Wrestling channel. And that is where I need you guys to make sure that you're following that. So I'm starting the raid and we'll raid out. And then when you go to that new channel, all I need you to do is follow that channel. And that's how we're going to grow that channel. Because at one point, the only way that you guys are going to be able to catch this live is on that channel. So we've rated, boom, Twitch business.
Twitch
All right.
business.
We're talking about Twitch biz, Tina Marie, y'all. All right, yo. So
Oh,
Heat. What did you
yeah.
think about? Do you remember that? Well, no, because you got it late.
No, but I remember Bobby the Brain Heenan
Mm-hmm.
kept on referring to the girls on the show. Were they called the Rockettes or something? That was the girls that were the dancers on the show that Vince McMahon had. And he's always like, he'd be really strong. He'd like refer to them as dogs, and he'd just straight out say it. And it was like Bobby the Brain Eating. Ah, did you see Vince last night on that show, the dogs?
Look,
Like, and it was
and
like,
look, Mad Ways said, "Sup, my dogs? What's up, Mad Ways? How are
hello,
you?"
man, boy, how you doing? Yeah, because Bobby the Brain Eating would go hard. So I was thinking, what's this show he keeps referring to? But yeah, then I worked out as I got hold of it, I see clips and stuff. Yeah, it was that it was on there. But to see a clip of it, Vince coming out and singing that number and pointing up
And
at the sky
dancing, man,
and
like he
he
was
can move,
in it.
man.
I was like, well, he's talented, he's gifted, and they established, in the last one how he was athletic, right, and has always been, as he said, a fighter, right. So he faces shit head on and puts his head down when you got heat. He digs into it, right. So that's
Mm,
kind of the message, right. So they get that. And you go into that period and you think, because this is all coming off of WrestleMania 1, and they are experiencing the boom and WWE was the thing, and it was, again, integrated in culture, the MTV and all of these things. And as me, I was a little Hulkamaniac, and I had all of the WWF toys. I had the dolls in the ring and the little thumb guys, and I just that was my shit, and I had the magazines and all of the things, and followed it as a kid. I knew all the storylines, would follow and watch the shows, and then they give us the Saturday night main event wrestling show. Now,
Yeah.
you didn't have an opportunity to see those
Now we see
live or
them.
anything? So
We
you
see
did
them.
see those?
So yeah, so we would have on Sunday, we would have a program called Wrestling Challenge. And we had Wrestling Challenge, and there was something else, Superstars of Wrestling. And I told you before, there's a squash matches. But every now and then, instead of one of them programs, a Saturday night's main event would be on instead of them. So was Saturday night's main event for you only like once a month or something?
Yeah, it was only when Saturday Night Live would take hiatuses, right?
Right. Because
And they
yeah,
would
we didn't get it every week, but every now and then, like my mates was like, "Quick, come around! It's a Saturday night's main event. It ain't squash matches." Like, 'cause we were sick of watching like the bushwhackers just beat the shit out of someone.
right,
Like, so
some
yeah, it
random.
was like, it's a main event and everything. Like, and we'd all sit around, we'd all go around my mate Abdi. We'd all end up around his house. One of my best friends growing up, my friend Abdi, his family was from Somalia, and this dude, man, I'm not exaggerating. He must be 6'7". This great big dude, larger than life dude. He was like one of my best friends, and the most gentle giant you'd ever meet. But his family had the satellite dish on the side of their house. So on Sundays, we'd all be, "Hello, Abdi, what are you doing?" Knocking on his door. "Do you want to come out and play?" Knew him full where we'd go, "Come in and watch wrestling." Like, and so that's where we'd end up around there. But yeah, no, so we'd get the Saturday night's main event. Like, so what I remember from then is Mega Powers.
Mm,
They teamed up and they used to be on a Saturday night main event a lot. But I remember you'd get like a couple of little matches and then one big one on a Saturday night's main event. But was there more to it? Because we only got like an hour. So our version must have been edited.
yeah, it was definitely a 90-minute, if I remember correctly. But at that time, I was a kid, and you know, what did they say? What year that happened? Was it 85 or 86 when that started? I don't know. Either way, I was either 9 or 10. I was born in 76, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know a lot of kids grew up differently, but I had a very strict bedtime, especially at that age, right? And was like that uh until, it wasn't like that. And I it was a big thing to be able to stay up late night and watch things and do that. And I even remember the first event, the first time it happened, I wasn't allowed to stay up. My mom and dad recorded it on VHS, and boom, I was able to watch it the next morning. I got up early, like I couldn't wait. It was already, they were like, "We'll have it in the machine ready for you, rewound, just hit play." I was like, "All right." Like, I just hit play, you know what I mean? I'm eating my sugar snacks and Kool-Aid and milk or whatever the hell, you know what I mean? But and watching that stuff. But there was the big one where Hulk got hurt on it, that I was up, they let me stay up
Hmm.
live, and at that point, and it was a big deal. And it was, being able to stay up late and watch these matches that meant something to the storyline that they were telling. And when Hulk got hurt, man, like, I was scarred from it. I think we've talked about that on it was such a huge thing. And you expected Hulk to win, and he didn't, and he got hurt, and it was just like, what? So
Mm.
I mean, that it was, I don't know.
I'll see that at London Arena. I'll see Hulk get hurt there. He must have done a run of getting hurt in different towns, because I'll see him get hurt at London Arena. Slaughter through, it was like flash paper, but it looked like a firework or something. They threw it. He went, ah, and then the next time you see him on the TV, he had like a bandage across his eyes and like little scars, like penciled in, coming in and out of the bandage and that. So yeah, I remember seeing that. But how many places must say I've done that same finish, and then on the weekend it was on the TV, because they was doing a European tour at the time, like, so
Yeah,
they're the same finish in every town. Do you think? I don't know.
I think they did, probably, if you think about it. I mean, they were working out their storyline and telling the same story as they went through the different territories and stuff. I mean, they have house shows here where they just have to continue the story that's going on TV, but not really have any type of consequential matches that's going to impact the storylines. But I just get it, that right there, though, just knowing as a kid, seeing your guy and you being hook, line, and sinker. And let me fast forward to my son with John Cena. I mean, that was his Hulk Hogan, right? And I mean, this is still a big thing to him. I mean, he's older now, and he gets it. Not when he was a little kid, littler, you know what I mean? And that was huge, especially when I having to put him back together when John Cena went down and got hurt. So those emotions, I was able to relate to him and have a bond and connect with him. Like, yo, man, let me tell you the time when Hulk, and I mentioned specifically this Saturday night event and took it through him, because it's still something that I can relive. It was that vivid to me. It was that vivid to me. So it was like, oh, I had nightmares about it. Like, no, because he was like Superman. He was like the real Superman. You bought it hook, line, and sinker. I mean, we were kids. That's who they were playing to.
But getting back to what you said about the VHS, your parents would record it. I remember recording WrestleMania 6 after waiting a year for it to come on, because that build up was a year long. Him and Warrior, and I got up the next day. I thought, yes, I'm going to watch this. Like, like went to school, got home from school because it was like a Sunday night or something. And I remember getting home from school, putting it on, and WrestleMania 6 was longer than the VHS tape. So I was watching match after match after match. When it got to the main event, it stopped. It ran out of tape. I was like, "You motherfucker!" And then like, that's a long show, WrestleMania 6.
Absolutely. I remember that being an issue with, like, because I had to wait for my aunt and uncle to get me tapes, and if I got it, and yeah, man, that was a huge, when you got the tape and it didn't have the whole thing, or if they didn't switch the tapes out fast enough.
You missed a chunk.
That was horrible,
I
man.
remember getting a tape off my friend and he's going, I've got a tape. And I went, oh, I'm coming to get it. I rode around on my bike and went, get the tape so I can go and watch the fight. You went, yeah. You went, there ain't no sound on it though. So I'm watching so I remember watching it with no fucking sound.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yes. That's crazy. That is that. Yeah.
I still sat and watched it with no sound because I had to see that fight. I had to see that fight. Yeah.
Yeah, you got the tape that the tracking was all off, and it it was blah, blah, just because they had taped over 42 HBO recordings of whatever, it just it just was like, oh man, but you still watched it.
Or
you still watched it.
It used to be a shitty movie and they put tape over the hole. so you could record over it. Yeah.
Yes,
Mm.
absolutely. That's the thing. Yeah. So I mean, you've got that. They're booming. They're integrated with the popular culture, the kids, just everything, right? Then you fast forward, they go right into, start talking about though the grind that those
Yeah.
wrestlers were actually under 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. They went nonstop. The Jimmy
Mm.
Hart, Honky Tonk Man, you know, Hogan, all of the wrestlers was like, yeah, it's nonstop, nonstop. Tony Atlas is one of my favorite uh characters, or not
Mm.
characters, actually, in the individuals that they've been interviewing throughout the entire episode. He just tells it like it is, right? He's
Yeah.
just
Yeah. He doesn't paint it either or this way. He just matter of facts it. Then it's just this is what happened. Like when he said, "Well, it didn't make us work, but we knew if we wouldn't have any work." It
exactly.
was like that. It wasn't like it wasn't work or else. It was work or go work somewhere else. Hmm.
Yeah, man. So it was definitely oh man, I don't know how to I got to deal with that. Anyway, that is something that was crazy. So they had no medical coverage too. So if
Hmm.
they got hurt, there was two things, right? If there was an injury, it was out of their pocket because they had no medical insurance.
Hmm.
But also the fact that if they were hurt, then they were rode out of you know what I mean? They
Hmm.
were no longer going to be able to. It's not like you get hurt and then you're going to come back. No, like they moved on.
Hmm. Yeah. Welcome to my world. That's what my world is. Yeah, that's self-employed contracts. That's 2 hours contract. That's just that's how it works. Yeah, you don't work, you don't get paid. It's just fact.
Absolutely.
And staying in the like you said, like what Pan's saying about staying in the cheap motels and that. When we get round to watching Beyond the Mat and we hear Mick Foley's story and some of the places he stayed and lived out of his car because he didn't want to spend the $6 or the $10 on a shitty room. And then when he did, there
Yeah.
was 3 other guys in there with him, and the youngest one didn't get a bed. Like
Right.
they got the chair, like the the two seniors would get the bed, and they would get the chair.
Yeah, man. Like that.
Like the
Just thinking
grind. Mm.
the grind and driving and just uh thinking about I listened to another podcast and was uh Undertaker talking about how much he had a little escort he bought brand new, and him and Godfather were talking, and how he put like 250,000 miles on a car in 1 year,
Mm.
or more in 1 year. What's up, Fry Bread? What's up, everyone in the chat too that's tuning in live? Thank you so much. We're just plowing through content for everything. So the thing then you go into Jesse the Body Ventura, who is
Yeah.
a character. He is larger than life.
Mm.
He's always been, he has all these different shows, and he's a big conspiracy. Shout out to Herbs, one conspiracy guy. And he
Wasn't he a senator somewhere?
absolutely, he was a governor. He was a
Governor.
governor. Yeah, governor of Minnesota.
So
And yeah,
right.
man, he it's always just been wild. But then though
I've heard some of the shows he's done. He's like not as bad as, but he does the Alex Jones sort of stick, like with the conspiracy shows and that.
Yes, he has had some on a bunch of different cable shows and podcasts. I encourage everyone to go and watch him. What were you gonna say? My bad.
No, I was just agreeing with you. Yeah, that
Yeah.
they to go and watch him. Yeah, he's a larger than life guy. I mean, he tried to put together a union, didn't he? So
Yes.
back then, he was trying to get the guys all to stand up for themselves and put a union together. And if we don't get what we want, we can all walk out together out of a show to leverage Vince into giving them contracts where they got dental and health and holiday and only worked certain hours. And while they were all discussing it, he said, "Right, we'll call a meeting so we can have a proper meeting." He was discussing it individually with people. He said, "Right, we'll have a meeting on a certain day to discuss how to unionize." And all of the wrestlers all said Hulk ran straight to Vince and told him and ratted him out.
Hulk said out of
Mm.
his own mouth, he was like, I did. What
I
did he
ran
say?
straight to. He went. I
He
run
said a
straight to Vince.
beeline. He said I made a beeline to Vince. He said this. I made a beeline to Vince, brother. And I was like, oh snap. So he definitely was. That was in my notes. Was the Hulk was the rat in that because of that. And at the end of the thing, they talked about how Vince normally tackles everything head on and went to and held a meeting or told everyone individually,
Mm.
if I know about the meetings, I know about what's going on. If you go to that meeting, you're fired.
Yeah.
And no one showed up.
No.
And then he held this meeting as a whole thing, and it was a show. And I remember watching this as a kid. And I remember seeing Jesse get shot down and just putting his glasses on the end part of the clip they show. And I
Right.
was like, oh, that was, as a kid, I was like, oh,
He
but,
had boo boo face. Then he put his glasses on. Then he like that. Yeah. Yeah. I remember that.
so, and then he gets fired because he goes to go work on Predator and Saturday night main event.
He got fired, did he?
Yeah, because he went to go work on this is all like at the end of that, he fucking leaves to go to Predator, excuse my language. He goes to go Predator and he gets fired, no longer on the show, no longer a host on Saturday night's main event. And NBC says absolutely not. And NBC and that show is the reason why he was able to come back and was
Mm.
back. So that is what was the saving grace for being able to get back on after doing all of that events. Because, it's mentioned throughout all of the episodes and definitely inferred every time that they're talking about Vince, especially back in the old days or even throughout. If you screw Vince over or go at Vince, he's going to humiliate you and bury you and just kill your progression. It's
Mm.
happened to every single wrestler that's gone through that. So, you know, what do you think about that part of it?
I mean, what I find weird. I mean, he wanted to go work on Predator. Like, surely his face on Predator would legitimize the wrestling part aspect of it. It would be this is a real star, and it would draw eyes to the wrestling. So, if anything, you'd encourage it. But I
Yeah.
can't see the gain in firing someone for going on like that. I mean, he done it with Hulk.
Yeah.
Hulk wanted to go, and he went, "Well, we write a film together."
Yeah.
And I mean, we're going to get to that. That's when they wrote "No Holds Barred," wasn't it? Like, and
Yes. Absolutely.
Mhm. And but I've I knew Thunder Lips in Rocky 3 before I knew who Hulk Hogan was.
Absolutely.
Like, so, you know, I don't get why you would be angry with someone to go and promote elsewhere.
Well, I mean, Vince was very much concerned about, I mean, think about it though. I mean, he had it that we go back to 7 days a week,
Yeah.
52 weeks a year. I mean, you were working, you were traveling, you were not, if you were going off to be in Hollywood, then you weren't part of the grind and you weren't.
Mm.
So that in itself was, so I just I think that speaks volumes. But you had mentioned, you know, you go to fast forward to WrestleMania, and that was WrestleMania 2, which was considered when by a lot of viewers, and I remember being kind of underwhelmed, but as a kid also being very grace, like giving grace, like, oh,
Mm.
they're trying to, that's three cities, and expecting, they, the way they were presenting the hiccups. And we do live shows here too, and just
Yeah.
doing these little things with people signing on. Shit happens. So it's just that in itself was what did you think about WrestleMania 3 or 2
I had no when it came up in the documentary, I thought, right, WrestleMania 2. And I sat there for a little while and thought, I don't remember it. I don't remember a thing about it. And then they said, oh, it was in the three cities. And I thought, I remember that, but I don't remember a main event. I don't remember
Oh man, I do. They
anything
they
about
skimmed they
WrestleMania 2.
skimmed over it too, because that, I mean, that included the storyline of Roddy Piper and Mr. T boxing. They had a real
Ah, yeah.
boxing match, remember?
And the worst body slam I've ever seen with the gloves
Mm,
on.
man,
He tried to body slam T, and T never worked with him, and it looked terrible, didn't it?
yeah, T never helped and sold it. I mean,
Yeah.
well, you got to remember Roddy Piper did the whole blackface thing too.
Yeah.
He did. He did. I
Yeah.
mean, he did that during that leading up to that storyline. Like Roddy
Mm.
Piper did some crazy, crazy stuff that
I remember the blackface face he done with Bad News Brown, where it was half and
half
half, and
half and half.
he kept turning
Yeah.
to and using the different accents. My favorite is when he was on a run with Chavo Guerrero Sr.
Hmm.
and he would go out he would do the uh, Vladimir Koloff. He went out to the ring, and he was in Mexico, and he went, ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the Mexican national anthem. And he would play "Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da" on his bagpipes,
Yeah.
"Da-da-da-da-da-da-da," and all the crowd would go crazy, throwing batteries at him and stuff like.
Yes.
Roddy Piper had fucking molten lava heat, like.
Oh, Roddy Piper was a, I remember, so true story, and we're getting off the rails and we'll get back,
We'll
but
get back.
true story about Roddy Piper. So during that era and during that time, WWF had all of these, they started producing videotapes of individual wrestlers with matches, with packages of just, their matches individually, and then their little promos and stuff. And I remember uh that one that they did and they had in the store for Roddy Piper ended up getting like an R rating or something, right? It was something where my parents watched it before I watched it the night before. And that morning, I couldn't find the tape when I woke up. So it was in their bedroom or something like that. And then they're like, "Hey, you're not watching that one." I was like, "What?" Like, "Yeah, you're not watching that one." And they had seen something. It was like, because I can't remember what it was. Because when I finally was able to watch it and got a hold of it as an adult. I was like, I don't know what it was that they didn't want me to see, but I just, it was just one of those things. It's like, oh, I wonder what this was. It was like he had a lot of heat and he did a lot of crazy shit. I mean, he was absolutely insane as a heel, and he got all of that when he turned to a baby face. It's the reason why, whenever you can turn a face into a heel or a heel into a face, you get those really big pops.
One of the
So
best talkers in the business.
Roddy Piper's amazing. Roddy Piper is amazing. I mean, and not saying I condone or agree with some of the stuff that he did of that era, but and during that era, that was like different times, as Vince had alluded to. But then they fast forward, because they really go from WrestleMania 2 into WrestleMania 3.
Yeah, just jump like that. Yeah.
Because they're like, this sucked. We're not getting into the storylines. I don't want to get into the Mr. T. Like, they didn't even want to break down the matches, like you said. But I can remember like that one was that. The biggest one that I remember was that. But they get to WrestleMania 3 and they talk about the big setup to Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant. And Andre the Giant's turn as a heel.
Yeah, I mean, they've done a great job of selling it because that match had happened multiple times across the country already. And they was selling it as the first time these are ever going to meet. And it's for the title. And Andre's never been off his feet. And they was advertising all these things that had happened multiple times at house shows across the country. And I mean, the biggest thing I thought was that was in the Pontiac Dome, and they're saying it was 93,000 people. 90, that's a lot of people on seats. I mean, they said it might have been 70,000 in reality, but still 70,000.
Well, I mean, like Hogan has like, he spouts out the number like he down to the very last digit. He was like 93, 92.7. Like he just rattled it off, and everybody else was going with the 93,000. That's how Vince McMahon sold the match to Andre to get him to come back, because Andre at that time was still, he was very poorly at health. It was towards the end of his career, and he was off filming The Princess Bride, which is an epic movie.
Great
especially for someone of our generation. We grew up with that movie, and that was a big thing. And seeing Andre the Giant in a movie that was, not no holds barred level shitty,
No, that was a dope movie.
What I mean? That movie was amazing. So it was really cool. So we got to see that, but Vince goes and sells Andre the Giant, telling him like, hey, I need you to come back and do this match with Hogan, and gonna sell the most tickets that we've ever sold, or do the most business that we ever sold. How many seats? Andre asks, and Vince tells him 93,000, and he starts laughing, and he said that was the hook to get Andre to come back. Now, they mentioned that had to get a back surgery to get this match, and Vince and Hogan both rattle that off. But I have been doing research on all of this stuff, and have found out, per listening to Coronet talk, he had the back surgery after, so that is some blurring of the reality right there. And not telling the whole truths.
It was probably come and do the match. It'll pay for your back surgery. It's probably more.
Right.
Right. That would probably be more like it.
Good point there. Yeah, for real. I mean, you got a good point there. I didn't even think about it like that, but yeah.
I was just thinking how, like, people in like would sell it as a job at work, and that would be how they would sell it. It'd be like, yeah, I mean, 93,000 people, we'll get your back fixed. Like that was probably how it was, and then like more so. And I like the fact that Hulk didn't know if Andre was going to cooperate the whole time as well. Like when he's
That
saying that was cool. That's a cool little twist. Whether that's true or
I
not,
didn't
that's a
know
cool little.
until he did the three. He didn't kick out onto the 3 count, brother. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's what. And that.
Because I've heard Ric Flair tell that story as if it's him.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard Ric Flair saying like that, tell that exact story and say like, yeah, Andre wouldn't tell me if he would lay down for me or not the whole time. So that must have been another territory or something another time.
Yeah, and that was a big thing with Andre and Vince, and they've talked about it multiple times about how Vince liked to pull ribs and make guys sweat and put the screws to them and put them under pressure, and Andre did too. So I can see how that was definitely something that, but of course the fact that, I mean, Andre, at the end of the day, he did business the right way and would
Mm,
get upset when wrestlers, he was like the Undertaker of that
yeah.
time. If people weren't doing business, you know, they were going to sick Andre the Giant on you. And, uh, yeah, I mean, so just as a kid, I remember that Piper's Pit and remember the heel turn with Andre the Giant because,
Yeah.
uh, you know, Gorilla Strong mentioned in the chat, remember seeing Big John Stud versus Andre body slam match at a house show, and I actually got a chance to see that same match at a house show. I got to see one WWF show, I think, or maybe two shows in person as a kid. The other ones a lot were like the NWAs and those, because that was that territory, and those were the matches that were regular, and it was a big thing when WWF came to town, and it was a big ticket. uh but Andre heel turn was huge, like because I was a huge Andre fan. I had all of the toys, and seeing that, I remember feeling sick to my stomach, like, no, and not against Hulk. And I was like, Hulk's not gonna win. He's not gonna win.
Yes. I was like, oh yeah, Andre, get Hulk. You know, like,
You're the heel guy, right? Yeah.
yeah, I love the hills. I mean, the only time I got to see Andre, he was with Haku. Uh,
Oh, with
that's
Haku.
yeah, that's the only time I ever got to see Andre
Was
when
he
he was with
wrestling
Haku.
Haku, or was he
No, they
tag?
were when they were tag. Yeah,
And who did they? Do you remember who they faced?
nah, it might have been Demolition or someone, but it was at
Gotcha.
the it was at the same show. It was like an undercard thing. Andre and Haku tag team.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, that was dope. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember, like Demolition were my Road Warriors. I didn't know. I see Demolition first. I didn't see Road Warriors.
I got you. So you didn't see like the AWA,
I see it, but never
right?
it never sunk
Yeah,
in because I probably see it once and then that was a tape I had and I'll never see it again for years. So I'd
yeah.
seen them, but not realized how big they were and how they never lost and everything was a squash. But yeah, so Demolition were my Road Warriors, and Road Warriors were the copy
Hmm.
in England. Yeah, so that was the difference there. But yeah, Andre man was huge, huge. I mean, but I said when I see him with Haku, even standing next to Haku's a big man, and he'd
Hmm.
make him look tiny, like standing next to him.
Yeah,
But
man.
hmm,
So I mean, it was definitely, uh a big thing, and they sold a lot, and that was a
yeah,
humongous event. And WrestleMania 3, I mean, that just, it was,
yeah,
I
they had,
remember as a kid seeing, wait, because I had to wait for the VHS on that one too. But when I saw the fucking the them happening, it was so big that they were taking the wrestlers, because it took so long for them to get to the ring. to speed up the entrance time, they had those little miniature rings that they got in and would drive them to. And I always thought that was so cool how they had those little miniature rings that they were coming to the rings in.
They were scissor lifts. That's what we use at work, and they just literally took the safety rail off and put the ropes around. Yeah,
You called it scissor lips, though.
Scissor lift. Yeah, it goes up and down. If they wanted to, they could have gone like
scissor lips is something else, and that's not appropriate
no,
for this show.
We'll talk about that on Monday.
That's what Mondays and Thursday talk is scissor lips. So we got that, and yet you had mentioned.
Do you remember WrestleMania 3? Like when you got the VHS, you popped it in, and the first thing you see is Aretha Franklin. She sung Star Spangled
Oh, Aretha
Banner.
Franklin, yeah. Yeah, Vince just leaning into it. Yeah. That. Thank you for bringing that up, because that I was a humongous Aretha Franklin fan even at that point, and was like, oh, and hearing her sing that. I just remember being as a kid, I felt that I was moved by emotion. I was like, so yeah, that was crazy.
I mean, Say a Little Prayer was my favorite song. I say a little prayer for you, Aretha Franklin. That was one of my favorite songs growing up. And then to see her there, yeah, that was cool.
My makeup. You had to see when you start saying songs. I have
Sorry
to
about
feel
that.
it. You dag on it. You know you're doing it to me.
I know.
All right, what were you saying? My bad.
I don't. Just before the moment I wake up, just before I put on my makeup. Was she sitting in front of a piano?
Yeah.
Could she play piano?
She could sing and play piano, and she played piano and sang that shit. She was Aretha Franklin was a very, very, very talented and gifted woman.
I knew she was talented. I didn't realize the only time I ever see her play the piano was there.
Nah, man, she's amazing, bro. Like seriously, go back and check out some Aretha Franklin for real.
The tunes and the songs she could hold with the equipment they had back then is unparalleled. Her and Etta James. I don't think there's a soul singer alive ever since that can hold a candle to them too. With
man,
the way that the power they got in their voices. I remember. Look, I'm going to go right off now, but sod it, I need to do this. I remember watching Beyonce in Cadillac Records playing Etta James, and hearing her sing and thinking to myself, this is as good as Etta James. And then I've done an experiment. I played Beyonce's version, and then I played Etta James's version. Not even close.
Well, it's different. I mean, it's completely different, right?
The power and the feeling of Etta James singing compared to Beyonce. I mean, Beyonce, don't get me wrong, absolutely the biggest star in the world. Like as far as soul singing goes, she's on my Mount Rushmore of soul singing women. But compared to like the Etta James with the old equipment without the studios we've got today, is unbelievable.
Well, it comes from, you can tell when singers came up in a church and also came up in a church singing at like a black church, but also without any PA, someone that like has come from stage and came up where you don't have mics, and they learn to project their voices as they're acting and using their diaphragm. And that's when you look at to the point how Etta James, Aretha Franklin, Gladys Knight, and just all of the Diana Ross, all of the great singers and that you mentioned, those divas from back then, they all had that power because of that. And I just gotta, like, for everybody that's out there, you want to know one of my favorite Aretha Franklin songs? I got to give you two because I can't give you just one. Jump, off of the Sparkle soundtrack. It's a fast song. It feels good. I guarantee you, anytime that I put it on anywhere, regardless of the party, I put that on, all crowds, all ages react. It's like the Pharrell Williams Happy version, but it's timeless and way better. Check that out. Number 2, Angel. Got to find me an angel in my life. Aretha Franklin. That's a ballad, a slow song, and it's about, I'm going to let you tell her story because she tells a story and it's beautiful. You got to listen to those. All right.
I like Think and Respect. You better think about what you're gonna do to me. That one. And I like and Respect. Yeah.
RESPECT. Found out what it means to me. REESEE. Found out what it means to me. Reese's. Yeah, music. You got me off sidetrack. So we got to get back to the lead up to Ultimate Warrior. The lead into Ultimate Warrior, and the next, that we fast forward into Ultimate Warrior, right?
Yeah. So what happened was we had WrestleMania 3. Hulk didn't know what was going on. Got to the main event, and all of a sudden, Andre goes, slam. He said, and Hulk said, I picked him up, slammed him, covered him, and that's when I knew he was going to play ball right there when he didn't kick out. And then Hulk was big, but that made him huge. That blew him up. That was his moment, a defining moment. That he was already big, but that shot him into the stratosphere. So that after that was Hulkamania was running wild after the Andre Hogan thing. And then, like you said, so Vince was always thinking, what's next? And then we started building up into Warrior. But Warrior was like 4, 5, 6. It was 3 WrestleManias later. So what happened?
They just skipped. I mean, they were.
Yeah.
I don't remember necessarily, and I got to go back and take a look and see what happened.
He fought Andre again in 4.
I mean, let's Google.
I remember 5 was Rick Rude and Warrior, and it was a wicked match. Because Warrior kept kicking out, Rude kept pole driving him and like dropping him on his head and doing his finisher over and over again. And Warrior kept kicking out. I remember that.
All right, so I have, what were the matches at WrestleMania 4? The undercard featured a 20-man battle royale won by Bad News Brown, Demolition, Axe and Smash versus Strike Force, Tito Santana and Ricky Martel for the WWF Tag Team Championship, and Brutus the Barber Beefcake versus the Honky Tonk Man for the WWF Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship. But WrestleMania 4 was the 4th annual WrestleMania professional pay-per-view event. The event took place on March 27th, 1988 at Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic, New Jersey. Let's see here. Attendance for that was 19,199. And let's see, the main event was a 14-man single elimination tournament for the heavyweight championship, in which Macho Man Randy Savage defeated the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase to win the vacant title. This marked the first WrestleMania that Hulk did not feature, or WrestleMania that did not feature Hulk Hogan, regarded as WWF's biggest star in the 1980s.
Yeah, that's weird. Was he injured? Or was he in Hollywood?
I think he started dealing with the scandals at that time.
Oh, yeah.
That we're going to get into episode
we're getting
3.
That.
Yeah. So
I like the way bringing it back. You was saying Tito Santana, Strike Force. I liked it that Jesse always called him Chico.
Oh, yes, he did. He did.
Chico. And I was always correcting him, and he just wouldn't even acknowledge that he'd just be corrected, and he'd just keep calling him it, Chico. Yeah. Just
Yeah,
little
man.
little things like that used to tickle me, you know, because it would be like,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And then to speak about, so number 5, you had let's see here.
that would have been Zeus, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so that was 1989 at Trump Plaza. You had Hercules defeat King Haku with Bobby Heenan. The Twin Towers, Akeem, the Big Boss Man was Slick, defeated the Rockers, Shawn Michael and Marty Jannetty. You had Beefcake versus Ted DiBiase with Virgil, fought to double countout. The Bushwhackers, featuring the Fabulous Rogue, which is Jocks and Raymond with Jimmy Hart. You had Mr. Perfect defeat the Blue Blazer. You had Demolition defeat the Powers of Pain, which was the Warlord and Barbarian of Mr. Fuji for the tag champion. Dino Bravo
One of my favorites.
with Frenchie Martin defeat Ronnie Garvin. You had the Brainbusters with Arn Anderson. Well, Brainbusters were Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard. Forgot about that. I haven't heard them forever. I know about Arn because, of course, he ran his own promotion too, Arn and Oli. With Bobby Heenan defeat Strike Force, Ricky Martel and Tito Santana. Jake Roberts defeated, and that's my heel. That's Hot Rod, Roddy Piper, and Jake Roberts were my 2, and still probably of that era, they are my favorite heels. But he defeated Andre the Giant. Singles match with special guest referee Big John Studd. So that was Andre the Giant versus Big John, or Andre the Giant versus Jake Roberts with Big John Studd as the special referee. I remember that match down
I
to
remember that
damn.
match. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you had Hart Foundation with Bret Hart and Jim Neidhart defeat the Honky Tonk Man, Greg, and Greg Valentine with Jimmy Hart. And then you had Rick Rude defeat the Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah.
And that was for the Intercontinental match.
That was a good match.
Yeah, that was a good match. And then, well, not really. Rick Rude was a great performer, but Ultimate Warrior was a horrible performer. We're gonna get into that later.
But I loved him though.
Oh, he had the kids. Yeah, I mean,
he
yeah,
had me.
we didn't know he was shit because he came out to that heavy metal music and like just shaking the ropes and being all roided out and coked up or whatever he was on. But yeah, man. The next match was Jim Duggan and Bad News Brown fought to a double disqualification. Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Bad News. It's gonna be bad news. Now here's a name I haven't heard in forever. The Red Rooster defeated Bobby Heenan with the Brooklyn Brawler.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of his real name, the Red Rooster. Because he was a behind the scenes guy, wasn't it? And the Red Rooster was like a rib on him. I can't remember his name. He was a high up guy. He was like in charge of talent or something like that. Like he was he had a big job. I can't think of his name.
So Hulk Hogan defeated Randy Savage for the World Wrestling Championship in that main event.
Was that when all that Elizabeth stuff was going on? Must have been.
No, because well, maybe. I mean, Elizabeth. They always had Elizabeth stuff going on, right? You know, because they had, George Animal Steel. They had that whole storyline too, where he was always showing up and stealing Elizabeth and all of that stuff. It's like, oh, he's gonna steal Elizabeth, and he would run off with her, you know. But WrestleMania 6 happens to get back to where they cut out all that other stuff we were talking about. But they had Ultimate Warrior match, right? So they knew that, Ultimate Warrior was a new thing. He had all the kids. He had Danny Chaz. That was his favorite baby face. I'm just making that up. But
no, you're not. That's true.
So, I mean, I get it because that's the only baby face that I've heard you actually speak positively on. So, I was just assuming. So yeah, I mean, it's he was huge, man.
I wanted him to beat Hulk. Like it was very rare. It was a babyface versus babyface match at WrestleMania, because
Hmm.
WrestleMania is where the heels and the babies settle their feud once and for all.
Hmm.
So to see them two was a rare thing. And no, I was behind him. People like when you hear people doing interviews where they mention him now, it was always he was rotten, he was this, and he was that, and he was hard to work with. And but when I was a 10-year-old kid, I didn't give a shit. I liked the music. Like
Yeah.
I could hear that music now, and my head to start going. I like the way he would shake the rooms. I was like, "Who's this fucking mad fucker?" Like, excuse my language.
Hmm.
That's how I was. I was like, "Whoa, who's this mad bastard running around, shaking the
Hmm.
ropes and like just being chaotic?"
And what
But
was
I
huge
liked
about
it. I
what was
like it
huge?
because he was the one who finally beat Honky Tonk as well. Honky Tonk
Mhm.
held that Intercontinental title for a long time,
Correct. And he
and
had the he had the IC title
mm,
at WrestleMania and was the first person to hold both belts, the heavyweight
oh,
and the IC belt at the same time. That all happened at WrestleMania 6. That was a huge thing in WWF history.
because I remember he had like a 300 match streak or something of being the IC champion.
Mhm. Yeah.
And he
He,
always cheats or win or do something and cheat and somehow like win. It was a chicken shit heel. It was the best.
yes.
And then
Honk,
Warriors just squashed him.
yeah, Honky
Warriors
Tonk
just come out and squashed him, just clotheslined him and beat him. Yeah.
Honky Tonk Man held the IC title for the longest and held the record all the way up until last year when uh, Gunther, he defeated, like, when Roman Reigns had his big epic reign. Gunther was holding the IC and went and ended up just losing it at this past WrestleMania 40. Uh, and he held it for 666 days. Think of that number, right? But that was a huge run, and like you said,
Mm.
and it was like Ultimate Warrior was on a big thing. But the biggest complaint about him is that he didn't like to work. He did not
Ah.
want to work, and he and Vince got not get along whatsoever.
Mm. They say he was the best worker in the business because he never worked. Like
Well, yes,
he was
that's
out
saying
working the
something.
workers. He wasn't taking any bumps. He wasn't like getting like nothing. Honky
Yeah,
Tonk
he
Man.
never sold anything.
No,
Never
no.
sold anything.
No, he would just come out, play his guitar, bend his legs, hit someone with the guitar, or the ref would have best back was turn and win. Like there was never a match. It was just a build up to a mess, and then he left with the title. Like
Yeah,
every single match, it was great. Like like it weren't great as a little kid who wants to see his hero win, but it was great as someone who loves the heels again. He's tricked him again, and he's gone. You know, that was how I viewed him. Yeah, it was just just I loved him. Loved
yeah,
him and Jimmy Hart together, man. Just like magic, you know. And then
absolutely.
yeah, but my favorite as well was Heenan. Anyone who Heenan come out with, I was behind.
He was such a galvanizing and polarized. He was such an epic talker, and the way that he was, oh my god, like as a
Mm,
kid, I loved him and I hated him. I like as I was when I was younger, I was like, "Oh, I hate you. I want to," you know what I mean? But
mm,
as I got older, and I started to really appreciate his smart aleckness. Is like, oh, and really start
mm,
feeding into it. But this is towards the time. I mean, when we are at WrestleMania 6, bro,
yeah.
I mean, I have already discovered, and really at that point, we're at 1990. All right. So I'm in high school. I'm a freshman in high school. And I, at this time, music and football and girls had taken my attention. So like I was passively watching and paying attention, but not in it like I was at that point, because girls music and sports, that took over everything. So I just, it wasn't that big to me, and this is a lot of we're getting into the dark ages for me until we get to the Attitude Era and ECW and all of those things, right? These are the dark ages for me. Um, and you progress to the Ultimate Warrior wasn't doing
No,
doing
it
well,
wasn't.
and
It wasn't as popular as they thought he was going to be.
yeah, he just he fizzed out. So they needed to get the belt off of him. So like you said, you never have babyface versus babyface. So they needed something huge to get that off of him, and enters the Iron Sheik again.
Yes,
And they take the Iron Sheik. The Iron Sheik squashes them, beats them. And this is at the time when Iran and Iraq and all of that stuff are very much still storylines, and Vince is using and talking about how they start blurring current events with reality and wrestling, and blurring it all together, where you just had that. So they picked that storyline and was using it as an angle. Because I mean, before this though, they didn't even mention it anywhere in any of the past about the heel that they had with Nikita Volkov, right? Or
mm.
that cat,
Nikolai.
the
Yeah.
Russian Nikolai
Mm.
Volkov, right?
Mm.
That was a huge thing, and everybody USA, and the Russia and the whole thing. We went through that dance and rodeo, and then they just applied it to the most current, thing that was going on, and then all of a sudden, reality happened, and there was all of a sudden there was the war. But that Iron Sheik angle, like, tell me about what you thought about that, because I know you were following it, like you were deep in it.
Yeah, I mean, anything Iron Sheik does, I mean, like Iron Sheik was like the ultimate when he was like the ultimate thing. I mean, I like that he was a real heel, and you really thought he hurt someone.
He
If you,
did though. If you watch the
if,
Iron Sheik
yeah,
documentary, he
that's what I
was
was going
all
to say. Have you
coked up,
seen
and
the documentary?
oh my god,
Did you follow? Did
we're
you follow
going to
him
do
on Twitter?
we're yes, we're going to
He
do
is
a
great. It's Happy Monday. Fuck you. All in caps. Like that's the Iron Sheik. That's what I love. That's what I love. Um the Iron I can't wait we do the Iron Sheik documentary. It's fucking that's one of my favorites. But
absolutely.
the favorite thing I heard him say, the Iron Sheik, it was his daughter talking about him. And as she got older, and then she brought a boyfriend. She brought a boyfriend home to the Iron Sheik. And he was going, come here, baby. Come here. I'll show you suplex. And he was going, I'll show you camel clutch. I'll show you suplex. She said, but he'd be suplexing her boyfriend and then putting him in the camel clutch just to let him know how powerful he was. Like this,
Yeah,
he would do it as a, come here, I'll show you suplex. It's all good. Come on, there, baby. And he would just do it like it's fucking. Can you imagine going home with a girl to meet the parents, and the fucking Iron Sheik's there, putting you in fucking face locks? It's just fucking dope, man. I love that dude.
yeah,
But
man,
yeah, I
it's
mean,
crazy.
it goes back to so when the whole thing was going on, and then Slaughter joined in,
Which was
uh,
huge.
a huge thing because he was portraying a traitor.
I remember that. I was like, "What? Sergeant Slaughter's a bad guy?" That got my attention. I was like,
Mine,
you know what I
yeah,
mean? I was like, "Hold on, let me like, what was Sergeant Slaughter? What? That's GI Joe, and that's that you." And there was a whole reason why Slaughter left WWF
yeah.
was because he did the whole deal with GI Joe and took his character and likeness and owned it and gave it to GI Joe franchise and was doing that, and Vince wanted to sell his dolls with him, and they needed
Oh,
they needed an extra heat angle to help sell and get the belt back to Hogan, right? So that was the whole angle of getting it off of Ultimate Warrior, getting it to Sheik, and then getting it to Hogan, and having the whole Iran Iraq
hmm.
thing happen, and Hogan be USA. And in the middle of them doing the storyline and the build up to WrestleMania is when Iraq invaded Kuwait, and you had
Yeah.
Desert Storm, and they had to shift because the Sergeant Slaughter was getting death threats.
Yeah, he had armed guard on his house.
Yeah.
I've seen I heard on another podcast that he actually had guards on his house because he was getting legitimate threats
Mm-hmm.
that were being taken seriously by dangerous people, that they were going to come and kill him. And
Think about that.
I know. Yeah. Mm.
So I mean, yeah, they had to go because I mean, I mean, we are going super long. We might have to condense 3 or do part, but like, so here's what I want to say though.
We'll do 2 and we move on to, even if we have
Yes.
to do 3 another time, doesn't matter. We go as
So
long as we need to
check
go.
this out. All right.
Hmm.
I don't know about you,
Hmm.
but Desert Storm,
Yeah.
I remember
I remember
being
it
a
vividly, yeah.
freshman in high I remember being a freshman in high school. I remember, like, I think I had just got off the phone talking to a girl and doing homework. You know what I mean? I was chatting up
Mhm.
someone, had to do some homework, finishing up homework, and had gotten a shower and stuff. And yeah, because it was football practice, all that shit. And they my mom and dad came in the room and told me to turn on the television, because whenever there was, like, my dad would always be like, turn on the television and, like, watch news and history. If it was something important was happening, he was like, you need to remember this. So they come in and tell me about that, and I turn that on, and man, like, you know, I'm 14, and this is going on, and that's the first time I kind of was like, all right, my parents went through Vietnam, and my dad had always and my mom had always told me stories about the draft and how my dad had a draft card and all of these things, and that being something that's reality. And I was like, man, you better, it's like, if this gets bad, this is World War III at that time, this is gonna be a bad situation, and just watching missiles being fired and the
Yeah.
coverage and all of those things.
The coverage was 24 hours a day. It was just like in real time, the coverage. That was the
That was the
thing that blew
first.
my mind. That blew my mind. Because I remember going to work. I was working with my older brother because I was at work at 15. And I remember going to work and me and my older brother were partners. And I remember going into work and he was like, morning. I go, all right. And he goes, you look tired. I go, yeah, I've been up all night watching the war. Like it would be streaming 24 hours a day on the news channels. And my brother went, yeah, I was up and all. He went, could you believe they're showing this? Like it was the missiles going in back into Kuwait and the
The Scud missiles, though, man.
Scud missile. And
Everybody
all
knew
the
about
oil
the
fields
Scud
are on
missiles.
fire.
Oh,
Because they were setting
oh,
fire to all the oil wells because they was being driven out. So as they was leaving, they was setting fire to the oil, knowing that was the real reason for the war. And the Desert Storm camp were guarding all of the oil fields, weren't they? And yeah, terrible thing. But I remember seeing it. It was all shock and awe, yeah. Absolutely. So we've gone from WrestleMania 6 to the Gulf War.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's just that was all
Yeah,
some
we got into Slaughter, didn't we? And thing, yeah, because Vince was
but that
saying,
happened in the middle of the storyline. It happened. The
yeah,
war happened before. Like by
because
the
he's
time WrestleMania happened, the war was pretty much already concluded. It was done
because he
because it
was
was.
saying it was a little too real. Vince says this like, I don't regret anything, but that he went made me think. He said like it was maybe that was too much. He said, but we'd already started it and all that done. Like we was in it by the time it started. We was like well into it. Because I believe he said they held off of a few things they were going to do as well because of it. They sort of tried to tone it down a
Yeah,
bit.
they were gonna lean in more because they was just trying to generate heat and sell more
Mm,
tickets and get more people riled up and sell
yeah.
more pay-per-views and all of that. I mean, and the attendance at that WrestleMania was 67,678 is what the and that was in Ontario, Canada. Uh that it was very was a big thing, and they were selling tickets. They were still doing business, but we talk about how um everything starts going well, and they get the belt off of Iron Sheik, and you have the whole USA versus you know the whole Middle East
Mm.
for the most part, and
And it put Hulk back on top.
put Hulk back on top, but
Mm,
they didn't get the response that they wanted because everybody was tired of Hulk, and everybody was
mm,
tired of, especially me. I mean, I mean, you can't get me away from sex, drugs, rock and roll, hip hop, and sports, man. Like that's what got me. I mean, look at me now. I still sport. I just
mm,
that was what my focus was. So I wasn't trying to look at characters like the Honky Tonk Man, or the Gobbledygook or whatever the
mm.
you know
Like by
those
now, Hulk
donk.
Hogan seemed old. He was bald. He had like crazy bit of blonde hair around the back, didn't he? And like you could
Yeah, the
see,
mullet was struggling.
yeah, he was yeah, he was struggling. He was a sneezing fit away from complete baldness. And he had like, yeah, it just never took. And then there was the whole steroids thing, then wasn't there as well?
Correct. I mean, so you had that's going on with the steroid scandal, right? Leading into that, the doctor starts getting busted. So the doctor gets busted that has been not just WWF, but everybody. And this
Mm.
guy was going to the locker room and was basically selling it. And they make a thing. This guy was supposed to be a
Yeah,
doctor that was
he was
checking you before the match.
the sports medical commissioner, and
Yeah,
he
and
would go to baseball everywhere, and he was a legitimate fucking person
but all and
that
Brett
was meant to be
Brett
keeping everyone healthy and not using like fucking body wasting drugs, like
and Brett was like, "Yo, they the only reason why uh what did he say? He basically said,
He said he would come in, take our blood pressure, see that we're
right,
fit, and then sell us steroids.
and sell us steroids. Exactly.
He would write a prescription and then sell us steroids. Yeah,
Brett is by far the most bluntest and realist, and
yeah,
I think he's the biggest uh truth teller towards towards his for his angle, but
yeah.
he's very blunt, and he does cut through the chase with all of it. Yeah, that
He's
was
bitter with
huge.
it as well. He's got a reason to be bitter, so that's why he's so blunt. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean,
Tony Atlas, though, him and Tony Atlas are the most straight talking people I think in the whole thing.
absolutely, Tony Atlas is great. I mean, Paul Heyman is Paul Heyman and very enjoyable, but Paul Heyman, I mean, he could sell
Yeah,
fire to the devil. I mean,
yeah,
he could sell fire to the devil. I swear to you. Like Paul Heyman
yeah.
is like is the best in my I'm gonna say my opinion. Paul Heyman is the number one talker of all time in all wrestling. I don't give a shit because the way he's evolved and what he does now, and even the interviews and all of that, he is just amazing. Pan, have a great day, and everybody that's been tuned in live throughout this,
Hmm.
thank you all so much. We're shooting the shit trying to get through the show, but we appreciate everyone that's live, and there's going to be shows where we are going to absolutely just have back and forth and involve
Yeah.
everything. But we thank you guys. So you have that, and you've got at that time, Hulk. They had to move the belt off of Hulk, figure all of that out.
Hmm.
You got Bret Hart, right? Because at this time you had steroid scandals, sex scandals, Phil Donahue, all these things. It's just scandals, heat, right? And it just
Yeah.
gets progressively worse and worse and worse for the sport, for the storylines, the writing, but for
He's
Vince.
Yeah. I mean, his name was George Zihorian, Dr. George Zihorian, and his defense was because obviously they all got busted for it, and his defense was, well, I know steroids are illegal, but I've been selling them before they're illegal. So he thought because he was selling steroids before they're illegal, now they've made it illegal. It went, oh, they don't mean me because I've been doing it for a long time. Like that was his whole defense with it. And like they went to court, didn't they? They had the big court case,
Yes.
and
And even Smokey says, yeah.
and they was doing that, and then so Vince he started doing steroid testing while the case was going on. It was like trying to plug holes, like and everything else. So he started taking it serious and saying that he was doing steroid testing, and he said he started the WBF. And he went, probably weren't the best idea I had at that time, which was
Oh, that
the
was so
World
cheesy.
Bodybuilding
It was
Federation.
so horrible, man. And
They
then
were all full of steroids, every one of them.
I remember seeing that at that time when that came out, and was
Oh,
even as a kid, I was like, this is fucking horrible. Excuse my language, but I was like, yo, this is bad, right? And then seeing it back, I was like, oh, what are you thinking? Like, what were
I'm
you thinking?
I'm very comfortable in my sexuality, but that made me feel awkward. Like they
Oh,
were
I
like
wasn't thinking about it like that,
they were
but yeah,
dressing
I
them up
guess
as
so.
little sailor boys and like putting them in things, eating with lollipops, and like
I didn't even think about it from that perspective.
yeah. I'm very open minded, but
Yeah, I know, I got
that
you.
used
I
to
just
make me
but
feel
yeah.
awkward. Like like they're like
Mm.
licking lollipops and like dressed as little kids. And
Oh shit.
yeah, he just dress them all up like because
I don't remember the lollipop part.
yeah, one of them was dressed like little
Maybe
boy
I blocked
Blue, and
that out.
he had a
I
great.
blocked that out.
Or maybe that's what I wanted to see. I don't know.
That's what I'm saying, Danny. I blocked that out, or I didn't fixate on that one, Danny. Little boy Blue.
But
Did he?
he even admitted it weren't the best idea at the time while he was going through that trial to debut that
No.
and bring that out. So everybody there thought that. Oh yeah, so while this was all going on, Hulk went on Arsenio Hall.
Correct.
And he said to Vince, he's going on the show, and Vince said that just look, the jig's up, just tell the truth.
Yep. Well,
And
he
he went,
told him that's not a good idea. He said this is
it's
not a
not a
good
good
idea.
idea to go on there. He said,
Do not go on.
go on there. So he went on there and then started denying everything.
Mm-hmm.
And Vince says in the documentary, why didn't he just tell the truth? I can deal with the truth. I can do something about the truth. But if you're just going to bold-faced lie, there's nothing we can do. He said, because as soon as he said it, wrestlers started coming out and saying, oh, that's steroids. I injected him once. But it was like about 10 different people saying, I injected him here, I injected him there. They all started. And I thought to myself, after the incident, why have all these wrestlers come out and said he does do steroids? I injected him, and then I thought, It's because of the whole fucking ratting on Jesse thing with a. I'll put that
Well,
together. I thought people don't like him because he's a fucking rat.
he
So
was
now they've
Vince's
got a chance.
guy.
Yeah, he was his stooge. So they all had a chance to go, "You're a fucking liar," and they all piled on. They all piled on, and
Mm.
like they just sunk him. But then yeah. So and then they when the court case happened. Have I jumped too far?
No, go.
When the court
Please,
case
yeah.
happened, they thought that Hulk was going to testify against Vince with the whole steroids thing
That was huge, right? Because the feds
they'd fallen out while this was going on.
they were at they it
Mm.
even mentions that, like, they were pretty much at 100% odds of each other, like, they were had nothing but the test for each other at that time. And Hulk, the feds, he per Hulk, he said that the feds were going to give him like 17 years, and they had something against him, and he had to testify, but they offered him immunity, and if he would testify,
Mm.
for
Mm.
them. And he tried to keep it as vague as possible. Whatever you want me to do, brother, you know what I mean, just to
Mm.
get to get the papers, and didn't really ever say anything, and never ever, like, got to that. And when he finally showed up in court, he they asked questions, and he was like, did Vince ever tell you to do steroids? Never. Did Vince ever force anyone to do steroids or suggest? Never. Like, and it was, everyone had also said, even Tony Atlas said, he was like, I was doing steroids before
Yeah.
I met Vince, like, and that, because that was the thing. And even Vince came out and said, I even have done steroids,
Mm.
because it wasn't illegal. I mean, it was prolific throughout all of sports. It wasn't just wrestlers. It was everywhere. And it was, I mean, you can look at they're still using steroids. They just are more,
Mm.
they continue to have to, that's why they have to do all this testing, that, swapping blood and all of these things that people go through to try to get
Mm.
through testing, but still are using performance enhancing drugs. It's just
Mm.
been a thing, right? You always get to get the advantage.
Yeah, I mean, they they all said Vince never ever told them to use steroids or ever sold them steroids,
Hmm.
with the caveat of if you didn't look a certain way, you wouldn't have got work.
Correct.
So it was never actually said, but they knew what they had to do to get work and be popular and earn money.
Hmm.
So and they knew that steroids was the way to do it. So he never actually said, go out and do this. But his actions were, if you don't go and do it, you ain't going to get any work. Without, like, it was implied.
Hmm.
If you don't look like all these, and they was actually showing you the photos of the wrestlers at the time, and they were all jacked, every one of
You
them.
had to look like a superhero. You had to look
Yeah.
like a comic book character. You had to
Mm.
look like that, right? So it was something that was just that was, you had to do it. And then you go right into, out of that, but at the same time, the first sex scandal hits big,
Mm.
happens.
Yeah. So they got and um, are we going into not Jimmy Snooker?
No, 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 no. Just, I mean, we can talk about that, because I mean, but the thing about Jimmy Superfly Snooker, they start talking about the reporter, and the reporter gets
Yeah, Phil
into,
Mushnick. Yeah.
correct. Mushnick starts uncovering and unveiling all of
Right.
the stuff that's been going on in the background, the steroids, the the scandals, all of the the ring, like, so we're talking about
Oh, I know. Yeah. Sorry.
so we have all of these things with the ring boys and the pedophile accusations and convictions, that there were those issues that were happening behind the scenes. But I think it was the very first sex scandal that Vince had, though. It was the first affair, right? And that
Yeah. So it was Pat Patterson, Terry Garvin, and Tom Holtz were accused of molesting one of the ring boys. One of the ring boys come forward and said that
Mhm.
he was he was. So I just, that's not funny. The next thing I'm going to say is, so they were talking about it and they were saying like it was terrible, and Pat Patterson also was accused,
Mhm.
and so the three of them were fired, and then it turned out that Pat Patterson was totally innocent from it.
Well, that's what. So with that, when they talked about that, I saw and have seen a lot of
Hmm.
interviews, a lot of time. I've spent a couple hours of my life watching Roddy Piper stuff, man. And I saw an interview where allegedly, I guess they're both passed away, but Piper said that, gave a big account about how Pat was his main accuser. And then even Tony Atlas came out and said, that Pat Patterson would grab him by his genitals,
Yeah.
and that was really, really huge. And to to find out that that was going on. And I was like, wow. And how, like, all of they would hire underage uh you know folks that wanted to get into the wrestling business and to put the ring together, and that would be their predators, that they would be their victims.
I mean, Tony Atlas said Pat was innocent of the charges. He said, but he was always grabbing my pecker in the changing room. But it's the deadpan way he said it that made me laugh. It was like, it was,
Hmm.
yeah, Pat was innocent of all that, but he was always grabbing my pecker in the changing room, like as if
Yeah.
that was normal, like that someone would walk by and grab you, like sort of thing.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
like, it was
locker room
normalized.
grab ass. There's locker room grab ass that goes on, because I grew up in locker rooms and I get it. But there's always where, like, for me, when I saw the Piper interview, and I saw the emotion in his face and him breaking down in tears and talking about and getting in graphic detail some of the accounts. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know if it's still available out there, but it was
What, that he done it to Piper or someone else?
correct. Piper was the saying that Pat was
Oh, he was not the victim,
the
but
man.
he was like the target,
Roddy
like,
Roddy Piper was a ring boy and was a young was
ah,
with the organization from a young age.
right. And
Yeah.
while
So
he was young, some shit went on.
he has a very interesting backstory that we need to just get into and have a whole
Yeah, because he
show
was
about that.
homeless and he lived in the, like, yeah, he was.
Mhm.
Mm,
Mhm. So there's
he's
a whole lot that goes into that. But I mean,
he was
not to
that
get
Scottish Canadian.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I mean, they just wrap into all the Phil Donahue episode where, they all pull him out. So I mean, I can't remember what else because my notes end there.
so I've got the first ref. She accused Vince of sexual assault.
There we go. Thank you. That's where I was getting into the sex scandal, was Rita.
Yeah, she
Was
she
that too
accused
at the same time?
accusing him of rape. Yeah,
Yeah. So, and she thought that she was going to get some $250,000 contract or something like that, and was promised all of these things when none of the wrestlers even were getting paid
yeah,
that type of amount of money.
yeah. And then I've got to conclude my notes for that show, WCW signed Hulk.
Yes, that was huge. You know what I mean? Hulk leaving the WWF and going to WW or WCW.
WCW.
I was like, what? That was like, that's like a Bengal becoming a Steeler, or
Yeah.
a Hatfield becoming a McCoy, or whatever, Sergeant
I,
Slaughter becoming becoming an Iraq sympathizer.
I'll never see a lot of WCW until
Mhm.
Nitro was on.
Okay.
So for the first, when Hulk first went, I wasn't seeing him at all.
Mhm.
And we didn't see Hulk all the time because he was such a main eventer. We wouldn't see him for months at a time anyway. So when he went, we didn't even realize he'd gone
Ah.
until we see the skits of Ted Turner and Macho Man, that old Hulk and old Macho Man, like when they had like out of shape people playing their parts and that. That's
Mm.
when I went, oh right, there he's
Mm.
gone. My first exposure to WCW was when I went to America on holiday, and I was in Florida, and it was on. It seemed to be on every day. WCW, like in the mornings on the channel at the hotel I was staying in. I had like two channels that worked, and one of them was seemed to have that on all the time, WCW. So it must have been a Turner
Mhm.
channel, and that was I stayed in the days in McCoy, Orange County, Orlando.
Hmm.
Yeah, so very upmarket.
No,
remember,
that's cool though.
I remember when I got there, the taxi, was it a taxi driver? Oh no, it was the guy in the where we rented the car from. We was
Hmm.
talking to him, and he said, "Oh, where you staying?" And my dad like said where we were staying. He went, "Oh, right, you heard about the shootout that was there last week?" And that was our introduction to America. Like there was a shootout at the hotel the motel we were about to go to, and when we got there, a couple of doors had bullet holes in.
Wow.
I remember thinking, "Whoa, America's crazy," and it looked like the motel looked like when Samuel Jackson puts Beaumont in the back of the car,
Oh hell yeah!
and
It's
he goes up the
like a
one flight of
roadside.
stairs.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
that's what
yeah.
it looked like. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Just to give you a bit of my own history. Yeah, but yeah, man,
That's
that was a
awesome.
great holiday. I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man. That that was cool, man. That's a great memory. Like having those trips, like especially when you're young and you go
mm,
somewhere new. And I could only imagine because we never had the ability to go on vacation out of the country,
mm.
and our vacations weren't as much as a lot.
That
When
was
we went
probably
on
the biggest. That was our biggest one, I'd say.
yeah, our vacations were to Colorado and stuff like that.
Mm.
It was, but we would go to like just even other cities though. Like even we would go to like visit family in Toledo and Michigan, in Detroit. Like they were out at like Owasso, Michigan. Then you have I remember the trip that you were talking about, staying at one of those hotels. It was this there up in Cleveland area. Up in that area, there was an attraction park called Geauga Lake, and on the other side of this body of water, it was like a lake that they had a amusement park on one side, and they had Sea World on the other side. So you had roller coasters and everything. Like Sea World didn't have rides. It was all like, you had Shamu, the killer whale. Uh, you had all of these different things with it, and Shane Boogie's going down the floor and shooting up. I absolutely, that was my dad. But I mean, that was epic. Well, that would have been my uncle though, because when I came out here, my uncle would be so crazy. I mean, thinking about that vacation, when I would come out here, I had an uncle who um, was a Bataan Death March survivor, World War II veteran, and he survivor of the Bataan Death March, and was a big was known as a mountain man, and did like all of he and his wife, my great aunt, she they have a ton of in the Cheyenne Natural History Museum, a lot of their uh, Native American artifacts that they have in there are donated but from my uncle and aunt, because they would go out into the mountains and find them and do all of this stuff, but also do competitions, did consulting on movies with like Robert Redford and all of these things. They've got pictures of Robert Redford hanging out in their backyard. But when I would come out here, this dude was wild, man. So we would go out into Wyoming, into these just, Wyoming's just a lot of nothing, especially back then. He would have a coffee can of bullets, like a big coffee can of 45 bullets, and he always had a revolver on his side everywhere, like a cowboy revolver. And he would be shooting out the window at bottles and signs and doing that stuff. He was good. He was a crack shot, like pow. Driving a car, bam, and he would have my dad drive the car and be shooting out the windows out in the country and shooting at stuff. And he was the one that had me when I was 4. Like, I shot my first gun, and I've got, I like he had me walking around with a 22 on the side of my hip. It wasn't loaded, but he told me, it was like, you touch it, then you're not going to be able to shoot it. But I was walking around with a real 22 as we were in town getting our stuff to go up into the mountains for us to shoot. This guy was wild. You know what I mean? And he was amazing. So these vacations, that's where we would have shot up the whole place, because we were out there. He was teaching me how to shoot at doors and like put numbers into the door. So that was probably me. See how I went off on a tangent right there?
I wasn't scared. I wasn't scared.
I mean, you grew up in a neighborhood that, you guys just didn't have guns over there. You didn't have gun
There was
laws.
guns. There was guns, but only the bad guys had them.
Right.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, there's guns here, but not as much as not as much as America. But there is. But it's only the bad guys that are gone, and the police. So yeah. But it's what you grow up with, isn't it? It's just normal to me not to have a gun. Like it's normal to you to have a weapon to protect your property and family. It's normal for me not to have one, and that's that.
Yeah, I mean, it was part of. I mean, we did sports with it. I mean, we hunted. I mean, I did competitive shooting. I mean,
It goes back to what we was talking about before. I don't know if it was on here or on the sesh. I think it was on. No, it was on here. America's still new.
Absolutely.
And you all carried weapons.
248 years old.
Exactly. So it's still new. It's only like 5 generations old. So it's you survived. You lived off the land, and you carried a gun, and you're not far removed from that. So that's why That's why it's normal for you to carry guns.
Absolutely, and it's part of. I will say that it is very much part of the culture here.
Yeah.
And it's integrated itself in a bad way too, right? So let me tell you the one thing and the first thing that I learned before I was able to do any of that was I had to go through like growing up, there was always firearms in my house, and they weren't locked up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's the same thing though. If like just because
but what I'm saying is it was drilled into the point that I was before, not to cut you off. What I was trying to say is that it was drilled into me that this is not a toy. This has dire consequences. And if you touch this, this is bad. And, this is like, you know what I mean? You have to, but also this is how you handle one. So if you are around one and you need to handle one safely, this is what you need to do. This is the function. This is how you make sure, even with your toy guns, you don't point it at anybody. So even
No.
as a kid, like I wouldn't, I knew better than to even
Yeah.
what they call flashing. You don't flash your barrel or your muzzle at anyone. And those were my father and my one of the guys that was his best friend that I was named after took me to an N as a young kid, as a very, very young kid, before I could even go hunting with them. I had to take an NRA safety course, and I had my card and all of these things that were drilled into me, and I understood and I respected them. Whereas the difference between the culture then and now is that there's not a respect for it, right?
Yeah.
And it's guns are a status symbol, like having a pair of Jordans now, and it's fucked up.
If guns were illegal, do you think the people that use them wrong won't be able to get hold of them? Guns are illegal in England. Do you think I can't make 2 phone calls and get one? Like, I never would, but like, it's not just because it's illegal doesn't mean it's not around, you know, and doesn't mean that I wouldn't know what way to point it. Like, do you know what I mean? I've got
I
no
understand.
desire. I've got no desire to pick up a gun.
And that's the thing, like you have a point that
Like
is
the bad people in
my
America
personal feeling.
that use
There's
guns wrong, if it was illegal in America, would still have a gun. That's
so
the
I'm
point.
gonna
Right, so.
I mean here I'm gonna see something. How many, let's just see what Google says, because Google, always has the answer to everything. So I asked Google how many guns are in America. The United States has an estimated of 393 million privately owned firearms, which is more than double the rate of the next country on the list. This means that US has more guns than people, with an estimated 120 guns per 100 Americans.
Yeah. Well, most people have got more than one, haven't they?
Most people, mostly. So I mean, and these are all numbers and all of that shit. They never know, but
But you're at
I
a
always
stage.
was told that was a big deterrent for why other countries don't want to invade us, because we're wild ass cowboys. You know what I mean? Like, there's plenty of people with plenty of straps, and like, you don't want to get. I always, me and my boys, like one of my homies, he's a dread, and he was like, man, if you could get the hood and the hillbillies united, and you think about it, right? If you could get the hood and the hillbillies united and not be divided as a country and be distracted as a country, just think what we could accomplish and how powerful we would be. So that's a whole nother topic. But to
That
go to
sounds
your
like our
point,
#1 record when we release our first song.
Hood and Hillbillies United or
Hoods and
some
Hillbillies
shit.
Unite, and we can sample UNITY.
Hey, well, I had a term for myself and a couple of my homies that grew up in the area where I grew up and shit. Like, I just always called us the ghetto billies. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because I mean, like, we were in the hood, and a lot of our folks and our people and our family were considered less than.
Mm,
Right, and that's how we were looked at in that neighborhood, or that neighborhood was looked at as less than, and
mhm,
whatever, right? And I wore it on my sleeve, like, yeah, this is me.
mm.
I'm a dirty West Sider from Cincinnati, Ohio, and
We were the Gremlins. All the old
the
heads were
Gremlins.
like the Gremlins. Know the scene when they're all in the bar and they're just running amok. That was like the old heads. That's how they used to look at us and my little gang. Yeah, we were the Gremlins. Like just people hanging from the fucking band and flashing the barmaid, and it's just all crazy shit going on.
I look, Bertie said it properly. Us country folk, as other put, yes, absolutely, Bertie, and my folks in the hood too, man. They like everybody. That's the thing. When folks that are strong willed and go through adversity, and regardless if the adversities are different, there's still adversities. Your adversity is an adversity to you.
Mm.
What's challenging to me is an adversity to me. We all have our own struggles. We all are in our own heads. We all face our own challenges every day. And what I wanted to say is that I'll, as we've gotten even up to episode 2, even though it feels like it's very sterile and very, there's not a lot of meat. There's meat there, but it's not filling. It's like eating cookies when you're starving. You know what I mean? Like, I'm getting sugar. I'm getting substance, but I'm not getting the nutrition that I'm craving. And the thing that I'm going to say is interesting and that I appreciate is that even at episode 2, I'm getting a chance to peep Vince's personality and his mind state and his perspective,
Yeah.
because he's a very unique individual. They say he's a narcissist. They say, he's definitely has personality flaws. And they have talked about his upbringing, his first 12 years being, growing up as, in poverty as well, and in an abusive home, and dealing with that, which he was adamant that he wasn't going to get into the details of. And you know uh and I respect him for that. And I just say that conditions a person. And I think that going through that, especially and experiencing that at an early age, it conditions you. And it also, I don't know, like, you just think about how some people, the difference between people that grew up with adversity and knew how to fight through struggles, and the people that didn't,
Mm.
when they face adversity and they face real challenge. It's who gives up and who continues to fight.
Mm. My dad always said to me, if there was someone who was particularly difficult when we were like work and they were like being an arsehole and shit, my dad would always say, he's got a saying, do you know what his problem is? He's never had a whack. But no one's ever punched him or give him a slap. They said, see that prick? No, his problem is he's never had a whack. Like, and there's people that walk through life like that, and they're just that they're the ones you got to move on from. But
Mike Tyson said it best. Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
so they get punched in the mouth. Yeah, yeah.
And that's to say, like your dad was talking, he shared the same mindset as Mike Tyson. And I agree with that, though. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. You're
Yeah.
big and bad until you're not.
That's it.
Until you realize there's always, and that was something that my father did drill into me early on. He was like, there's always someone bigger and badder than you. There's always
Oh,
going to be
yeah.
someone bigger and badder and better than you. I mean, and that's perspective at the end of the day. I mean, when it comes to fighting and stuff like that, I mean, it's also, you, the they may have the upper hand. And Vince even says, even at this point, he talked about how he liked the fight. He liked the conflict. He leaned into the adversity, the heat. That's what he liked. And that's what his defining thing, even in this episode, at this point, he wanted to drive home, is that in the face of adversity, throughout all of the struggles and challenges that they've faced just to get to WrestleMania 6, right? Just to get to that point in 1990, what he had to do when he first acquired his dad's business, or his dad let him start running up in Maine the first building. And what they don't say is that he wasn't just running the business or the wrestling show up there in that area in Maine. He ran, because his father owned the building, he had to book and run the entire facility the from the maintenance all the way up to booking shows, all the way up outside of wrestling, getting tickets and events and keeping that building constantly packed and generating money. So he understood the business from all aspects and angles. His dad put him through it, right? And he even understood business enough to be able to take and leverage and bet on himself, but be able to figure out how to bet on himself and always have the upper hand, because he said, yeah, I cheat, but he's like, and I won. That's his quote. He was like, yeah, and I won. So he's unapologetic throughout everything.
When exactly that, what he's saying, you cheat and won. When I used to fight as a sport, I won or got disqualified. Like that's the mentality, like of like that's the winning mentality, isn't it? You win by any means, you know. You win by
Especially
any
as a
means.
fighter, though. I mean, like, you were fighting as your sport, right? And doing that stuff. So that's a whole nother
That's a
level. I
whole
mean,
nother thing. Yeah, that's a whole
yeah, I
nother
mean,
thing.
that was my wrestling too. I mean, I wrestled, but
Yeah,
not
wrestling's cool.
not professional wrestling.
No, I know what you mean, amateur wrestling.
Like,
Yeah, Roman
but
Greco.
that is a whole, like, football, and that, like, when you get into
The mechanics
of one-on-one and that mindset, right? That, and he loved doing that.
Yeah.
And that was, I think that's why I really wanted to do this episode, like this first, and because this came out, was he's such an interesting character, and that's what I wanted to know more of and wanted to really understand, not just the current controversy that's going on that is later on.
I mean, I think to get to where he's got in business and financially, you've got to be that narcissist. You've got to be. You've got to have a
Yes.
You've got to be a narcissist. You've got to just put yourself in front of everyone and not worry about other people's feelings. And he has got that. He can totally detach from everyone around him.
Yeah,
Like,
he takes the lead.
Yeah. He can totally detach from everybody around him.
And there's a lot to learn in that. And I can't tell. I have to be honest. I have to pause these episodes as I've gone, because I've gone through them. But the first go around was difficult to get through them and not stop or have to rewind, because I started thinking and reflecting on some correlations of what he says and how he's saying it, because I'm studying him.
Yes,
I'm
I am
watching
too.
him. I'm watching his
body
body.
language is amazing.
I'm watching everything, because they even say the very first thing, you only get to see and know what Vince wants to show you, and he's the master of it, right? Because he built this business and all, like, made it to be what it is. And there's such a lesson to be learned, because he's led so many successful organizations off the ground, and there's definitely things that you can take away that are great, and there's some things that you could take as a cautionary tale.
What I've noticed with him, what he does, and I've seen other people in business do it as well, and they don't know they're doing it. He will say one thing in one sentence, and the direct next sentence he says contradicts what he's just said, and he will agree with both of them. And he will tell you both sides of the story. And so he like
It's politics.
It's politics. When he was talking about when Bischoff was saying Or isn't that what Vince done? Bought up the territories, like WCW bought up all the guys, his top guys, and he was saying, and then the reporter was saying to Vince, "Well, this is what you done," and he went, "Yeah, I did do that, but I didn't do it to hurt anybody. They're doing it to hurt people." And
Yeah,
I'm
that's in
thinking,
episode 3.
and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I'm just thinking, no, it's hurting you now. That's the difference. When he says hurt people, when he says the word people, he means me. He doesn't mean people like we say people. He actually means me. So that's what I've got from his body language. That he's a narcissist and he's a borderline sociopath.
And brilliant at the same time.
Well, you'll find that most people that are self-made billionaires have got them traits. That it's just like, I will always be skint because I care about other people too much. You know, I'm a sucker. I couldn't own an ice cream van because I'd give all the ice cream away.
I got
You
you.
know, like that's me.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that's just me. I'm not.
Well, and that reflection is something that made me think about, yeah, absolutely. You know, I've witnessed people and had to work with people that are absolutely like that, and you know, witnessing those qualities and working with those qualities, but also having some qualities too, and identifying them, and this like knowing the limits that or boundaries that I would never cross, where I could look at if I would have made those decisions and crossed those boundaries.
Mhm.
I would have had a completely different trajectory in my career, but I would, yeah, I have a soul.
No,
That's
because
at the end of the day.
we've got to the stage in our lives. A 30-year-old me wouldn't have given a shit and would
Mhm,
have made the decisions that he made. The
mhm.
48-year-old me, no, not one bit.
Yeah,
I've got different values now. I've got um, different priorities and different values now to what I had back then.
yeah,
So, like, it's more of a maturity thing, I think, than like anything else.
yeah.
And you got to remember, this is all he knows is that,
Mhm.
and it's by his own self design. Running that wrestling business is all he's known. One minute he was getting smacked about by his stepdad, the next minute he's running a business. So
Yep.
all he knows is them two worlds. And people always say on other podcasts that he lives in a bubble. He lives in a wrestling bubble. He does not know what's going on outside of it.
Hmm.
Like, he does not. Everything is the business for him. There is no so when he has um like the young acts and things on, it's all people that are coming to him with things. Like, so anything current, someone's brought it to him.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't have time for what we do, pop culture. But I think we done it.
I do definitely think we did it, because we went 2 hours on an hour long episode, and because there's a lot, and we haven't really even got to the
To the
juicy
meat and
stuff
potato,
yet.
no.
Yeah,
No.
so I mean, episode 2, I think, you know, was a good episode, but you know, again, I wanted to get into more of it. You know, I think my overall criticism is that this needs to get into it. Didn't, again, it was like eating a sugar cookie when I was, you know, malnourished. But yeah, I mean, episode 2 of Blurred Reality Wrestling, man. Danny Chaz, how you feeling?
This is what happened when two chatty people get together. Always just turn a 45-minute documentary into a 2-hour conversation. Because this is what happened when two people that enjoy each other's company and fucking are chatty as
But it
fuck
was
get
our
together and
life.
do what we do.
This was part of our
It
life.
was. It was. It was. It is.
It is.
It
It
is.
is. Still
It is.
is, because
Like when you
we're
were saying, "Oh yeah, man, I'm like out slaying pussy and playing sports." Yeah, I was also had time for wrestling.
You put
You know what I
that. You
mean?
said that. I mean, maybe you know what I mean. Like
Yeah.
I at that time, you know, I was definitely my eyes
Well,
and
you know what I
attention. I
mean,
was
chasing
trying.
and
Yeah,
you had
absolutely.
distractions, yeah.
Yeah.
But like I had distractions and wrestling. I'll step with it. Yeah.
Two Live Crew, just like I was like at that by 10 years old, I knew I was like, there's something over there.
Yeah, yeah. Wait, what?
So there's something about this. What's all this about? No, anyway, we're getting off the subject, man. Damn it.
We are.
All right, so look, I'm gonna press a button right quick, and yeah. So Blurred Reality Wrestling, episode number 2. Danny Chaz, shout outs.
Shout out to you, Ghost Boogie. Shout out to Blur Reality Wrestling. Thanks everyone for coming through. Miss Joy, Panda Bardas, Birdie, Becca Boo, happy birthday. Hope you're still with us. I know you was leaving. Gorilla Strong, thanks for all the support you've been giving us over the last couple of months. You're a fucking diamond. Same for you, Panda Bardas. Same for everyone, really. Same for Miss Joy. Becca Boo, she's got some news for us on Monday.
I know.
In the chat, she's got big news for us that she's going to tell us on Monday. So tune into the session on Monday to find out what that is. Join me on Sunday night for the Chilled on Sunday podcast, or as people like to call it, the Kulo on Sunday podcast. And we don't have no guests, so it's just me and the boys chopping it up, talking and getting around what we do. We may get a run in from Stu Dog, we don't know. But thanks for having me. Thanks for coming. And good luck, everybody. Ghost Boogie, shout outs.
Yeah, man. Look, I want to give a big shout out to Danny Chaz for starting and helping to create this. You know what I mean? This is all Danny Chaz's idea. I don't ever have an idea. So, shout out to Danny Chaz. Original idea, right? Never, right? So, anyway, look, I want to give a big shout out to my Usual Suspect family. I want to give a big shout out to my B-Boys Underground family, my Blurred Reality Wrestling family. All of y'all, of course, yes, Gorilla Strong, Miss Joy, Pam Badass, Becca Boo, Richie D. I mean, everybody that has been contributing, everybody, thank you so much. Thank you all so much. This is showing up, because that's the biggest part that we appreciate is your time, either on the replay or live. It's awesome. We appreciate you. Please make sure you follow Blurred Reality Wrestling on Instagram, on YouTube, on Twitch, Blurred Reality Wrestling. We got you covered. And then, of course, B-Boys Underground got a dope-ass guest coming up on Wednesday. It's the brother that has produced for a lot of people and done a lot of things. And I went to high school with him. So Danye Fame is going to be in the building. And then on Thursday's sesh, we've got the one and only Al Mal. Yes, he's going to be talking about his European trip. He's got a European tour coming. So stay tuned. Of course, I've got all types of mixes. Impromptu popped up. Stay tuned to Ghost Boogie 66 on Instagram. And of course, B-Boys Underground and the Usual Suspect Sesh on Instagram. We got you covered. We're always doing something. Tonight, we've got the Usual Suspect Smoke Train. I may be a part of it. I may not be a part of it. I don't know yet. But either way, stay tuned. Much love to you all. Positive, persevering. Don't give up. Love you. With that, it's been another episode, and we're going to wrap it. Peace out. Rallo.
Bye-bye.